Hello everyone, a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us in this webinar on performance management for the millennial workforce. I am Emil Eji, your host for this webinar. This session will be of 45 minutes along with your Q&A session. This webinar is conducted by Synergita. Synergita is a cloud-based performance management software which not only automates to resolve all employee performance review pain points but also enables employee engagement, employee training and development through its unique features. The presenter for today's session will be Mr. Rajaram. The presenter for today's session will be Mr. Rajaram Jayaraman. Raj is the HR product specialist, employee performance management, and has over 16 years of experience in HR information technology with software packages like SAP, on-premises, SAP, SuccessFactors, and Synergita. He has an extensive experience in core HR functions, HR solutions, and product consultation. Before handovering over the control to Raj, here are some housekeeping instructions. All phones are set to mute. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat window located besides the presentation panel. We have already received several questions from the registrants, which will be answered by the speaker during Q&A session. We will continue to collect more questions during the session as we receive and will try to answer them during today's session. In case if you do not receive any answers to your questions today, you will certainly receive answers via email shortly. Thank you for your participation and enjoy this session. Now over to you, Raj.
Thank you, Emil. It's good to join the webinar today, where we will be discussing presenting about performance management for the millennials. Why millennials? It's an interesting question. In many of the conferences or events, even in blogs, this millennials word has become a regularly a seen word, which is much discussed. Or in the recent times, this is on the focus, the radar of so many organizations. It's all organizing, and the efforts are put up for analyzing the millennials' multiple dimensions. Even if you see in multiple industries today, there are, for example, real estate, or financial organizations. So many companies are analyzing the millennials, starting with their lifestyles, their expectations, aspirations, spending habits, etc. So they do the analysis, and they position or configure their requirements in line with the millennials' expectations, or in line with their aspirations. So they make their products appealing to these millennials, and that is one among the factors where we can understand how important the millennials have become in today's world. Let's see a few things where we can understand why this much of importance is given to these millennials. First of all, they are the younger generation today, where we have got even we can say that a significant number of countries' population across multiple geos are dominated by these millennials. And then let us look at our millennials general nature, or in what ways they are becoming a prominent team in the global arena. They are passionate, and they are so determined, and they want to do things rather than on a the detailed or slow and steady approach. They want to do things in a passionate way, and they sound very much confident, brilliant, and intuitive. Even in a few organizations, the recruitment process, starting with the kind of questions that they frame, even for tests or scenario building, or even the interviews, it's all differing today. We have got a much difference in the approach, or even the tools and techniques. And then let's talk about the technology. These guys are really tech savvy. They rock like anything. They live in mobile applications. They start their day with alarm clock, where the days have changed from the alarming clock to evening, snacks or whatever it is, it's all run through these mobile applications. They check these items or products in the online, be it this one door delivery items or whatever it is. If you look at these guys' shopping habits, they primarily prefer online transactions. I mean, the habits of physically visiting of a showroom and checking out the products, the functionality or features of those products, bargaining, those days have, slowly reducing for these guys. So primarily they depend on Amazon and these kind of online portals where they can check on even for the reviews and the product features. They do the comparison, and through YouTube and other modems, they check on the product comparisons as well. They take on to the reviews of these experts, and they do all these transactions online. So they are so tech savvy, and they are pretty fast in their movement, whether be it understanding a requirement starting at office, or even in many times they have seen as moving out of the organizations as well in a much faster pace. Gone are the days where an employee joins the organization, stick on to the company for over 10 years, 5 years, and for these millennials, they are not often identified as long timers in the organization. That is another thing. And of course, they are very fast in grasping things as well, be it in understanding a requirement for a particular customer or executing that particular requirement into the product or services. They are fast. And onto the travel and wellness. Yes, these guys are happy about achieving a balance in their life. And the word workaholic is not relevant here. These guys are not known for long hours at office like their previous unlike their previous generation, where they have been spending like say 15 16 hours just like that on a regular basis. Here these guys, they want to achieve much more things in life. They prefer to have more meaning in a holistic approach. For them, the work is not all. They have other things to do in life. They are loving to travel, as well as they focus on physical fitness as well, including their food habits, the kind of travels they make, trips they make. So all these things are factors for them. They do focus on those areas as well. They pretty well in an advanced manner they plan their trips, including leave, travel booking, etc. They take care of their physical well-being in a proper way. And priority one is consumption. Yes, these guys again they do good amount of savings or other things as well, but primarily they are focusing on consumption. Even if you look at these millennials, many people today in today's scenario, you can see them. Even my own team members, I can see the kind of electronic gadgets that they have, the kind of spending they do. It's a phenomenal thing compared to me. So that's another thing. So primarily they want to consume other than hold on it for some time or think about the future days. So these guys are not known for those things. And onto the information or being connected, they are super informed and highly connected. So one person has some amount of some kind of experience in be it a travel or at office or interview or whatever it is, it's all immediately available online. I have something, for example, I buy a product and I maybe matter of a month or two, immediately I post a review, or even before buying the product, I do go through these reviews and then buy in a comparatively competitive way. So that's about the information and connectivity as well through their regular or non-regular groups. For example, WhatsApp, Facebook, or in the internet. Inside the office, also they do have a lot of organized groups through this Skype or Yammer, those kind of things. and through these modems they are highly connected. Let's talk about their aspirations. These guys are looking for flexibility in terms of everything, be it working hours or a dress code or working style. And these guys are not looking for traditional approach in terms of punching in and out of the organization, even the dress code as well. And you will see much more things in the field as such. And as discussed earlier, these guys are not looking for future, saving it for future. Something they want to do, they do it today and now. Instant gratification is important. And of course, these guys also seek a lot of challenges. In today's most of the exit interviews, this is one of the points where they say that the job is not appealing anymore, be it any segment, not necessarily IT or ITES, any segment. A few of my friends are, commenting from the HR desk, they do this observation. So these guys seek more challenges, and they also focus on their individual development, be it a training program or individual development plan that the company offers through the career channeling or ladders in the organization. They want to understand the exact requirements of the next position. How am I going to reach there? What are the gaps I have? Do companies provide this kind of training programs to fill up those gaps? Are the thoughts of these millennials? And then they do questioning. We have discussed about the balanced life on the earlier slide as well. So I'm moving on to the questioning part. Pretty recently, few PMS products, they have raised this particular activity, and we also see that the kind of activity is increasing in off late. It is option for appealing for the final score. Fine, as a manager, you have provided me the final score and qualitative comments for me, but I'm not happy with that, right? So I should be given an option for questioning the final score or appealing against it. This is not that famous in the previous generation. So today we have this questioning ability, including in the performance areas. And it's time for a poll. So the poll is open now, and you have the question there. And what's the percent of millennials in your organization? Yeah, we see the number of voters increasing second by second. Good to see that. Okay. Sizable portion has got more than 50%. Good to know that. Yeah, so the result is more than 50%. The organizations have got millennials for over 50%. So predominantly, in the days to come as well, you will see these numbers increasing by Gen Z as well. So that's the importance that we have. So to add to few of the stats, so we have these stats from different organizations, starting with Morgan Stanley, Deloitte, Forbes, of course, with Synergita as well. So again, this is proving the importance or the kind of focus that we need to drive, or the HR departments have to drive to attract these millennials, starting from recruitment till the exit. And even in Synergita as well, we have observed this. The demographics is something like this. We have got around 60% of our user community under the millennial umbrella. So that's again another stat on that. And these are the famous, surveys or stats that we have from Deloitte. So there you can see that the focus for the organization, for example, the first point, 58% feel that the business has a positive impact on society, and this has dropped down from 61% from the previous year, which means these millennials understand the organizations and their focus areas, and based on that they do act and have their own options. This is one of the striking commonality that we see, and we need to keep this in mind. And onto the social media, yes, around 71% feel that they have the the personal use of digital devices is this way. And the travel, of course, 57% they have their opinion like that. And let's look at the employee exit opinion. 49% have commented that they will leave the organization in the next couple of years. So the choice is there, and these guys don't feel anything different or something bad about leaving the organization if the companies are not aligning with their values. Okay, so who is the previous generation? What were they doing? And so how about their PMS, performance management system? Let's talk about it. We had Generation X there, or popularly known as Gen X. And so these guys are the ones who are known as workaholics. The one which we discussed earlier, they used to spend 15-16 hours at office. They were known for that. And even during the weekends, we used to see them in the night shifts also. They used to continue based on the customer's requirements. And they are much detail oriented. They take a deep dive into many of the transactions or even the subject matters, and they want to understand everything in detail. And for them, the organization becomes the #1 priority, and the company's call is always the topmost activity that they care for. And they were so loyal to the organization, and that's where, even if you see the longevity factor, they used to stay on the organization for even in today's world, we see many of the employees sticking onto the organization for over 10 years, just like that. And you can make these guys happy by public appreciations or citations, and which includes the monetary awards as well. And these are going to be different for millennials, that we will see in the next slides, of course. And these guys are mostly driven, and they are happy in complying to the processes and procedures. Again, they have got their own setup, internal policies and procedures. They are complying to that, and they are mostly traditional, and they are fine with hierarchical relationship, the boss and the subordinate approach. And of course, they expect the same thing from their team members as well. And the annual or biannual feedback or the PMS process is good for them. They are fine with that, because mostly these guys are, as we have seen earlier, they have got all these attributes. So for them, the annual or biannual feedback were sufficing. But the entire set of the nature or the kind of behavioral attributes are different from this generation to the next one, which is the millennials. So that's where they need to have a separate or different process onto the PMS side. So let's see what is relevant or exciting or what is required for the millennials performance management. When we say millennials, we have discussed enough about their general characters or behaviors, the expectations or aspirations. We will capture all these things through multiple channels to understand the employee first of all. Okay, 1 second. Meanwhile, let's have the poll done, and yeah, there you go. It's launched, and the question is, how do you attract millennials? Either through direct college recruitments or offline, off the campus drives, or referrals, internal referrals. How do you do that? So good to see the immediate responses from the audience. And yeah, 50% of the audience have mentioned that they take up the direct college recruitments. It's growing, of course. Yeah, now it's around 60%, and then the drives, it's around 30%, and rest of it's all into the referrals. Thank you. So let's continue on to the PMS for millennials. When you think of the performance management for millennials today, the trend is that, or the kind of setup that we have from the HR or PMS side is that we have got we need to have the information for these millennials captured from different sources like Skype, Yammer, or the Slack group, or the Outlook email communication. Basically, these are different channels, and they do have their own groups, subgroups. For example, you can have Slack groups and subgroups as well internally within your team, or within the team itself. You can have sub teams across the organization. You have different groups. For example, you can have a quality groups where different members from different departments, they take part. So from the communication of these channels, basically the real-time feed is captured and it's stored in a different, for example, a business warehouse system, a BI environment. From where basically the organizations, they try to analyze the psychological the approach. For example, how do these guys think, or how do they communicate, and their problem solving abilities. Everything is observed here, and it is like a psychological analysis where you can very clearly identify to what an extent or to what percent of level these guys have the ability on individual attributes like problem solving, and how do they react to different scenarios. Not all the days are happy days, not all the transactions are happy transactions, right? And how do they react on a challenging situation, how do they react on a better situation. Things like that are analyzed through the multiple channels, and then these guys are looking for basically they need to have a performance GPS. Yes, you heard it right. So they are looking for, they need to have a performance GPS. As I mentioned earlier, these guys are quick in movement, so they grasp things just like that. And so they are looking for a performance GPS. Tell me today, where am I? That's the question. As you drive in your car, you get to have this, the destination, the timing, and where is the turning, left turn, right turn, everything is mentioned over there. Similarly, these guys, they look forward for real-time interaction between or within the organization on their performance. Unlikely they will wait for the annual periodicity. So that it avoids the surprises as well. And then for them, the other point is that recorded in this slide is that the tech savvy nature of these guys. So they look forward for mobile application. As I mentioned earlier, the day starts with mobile or mobile applications, and it ends with mobile application for them. So let's have their PMS as well, whether it be a goal setting, goal management activity, or updating the achievements, or continuous feedback, everything. So they'll be very happy and much engaged if they are enabled any of these transactions with or through a mobile device or something like that. So yeah, and other point is that on to the feedback part. So when we think of the feedback, we have got qualitative feedback, quantitative feedback. Even in Uber kind of approach is still available in many organizations. Traditional setup is like that, where you have got a set of goals assigned to the employee, against which he provides his feedback with a 5-point rating scale, and then the manager does the rating based on these information. And of course, in the recent times, you would have observed that GE kind of organizations, they have removed these quantitative ratings and they focus on qualitative feedback, including the developmental aspects, how are things today, and what are the aspirations, and what are the training required for reaching out a particular role. Those kind of things are discussed, and much more qualitative feedback is progressing at this point of time, which is enthusing these guys basically, and they look forward for developmental opportunities, and because they are much informed, and they also have good amount of interest towards leadership positions. So basically they try to figure out where am I, what are the required things for me to reach X position or Y position, and the question of where do you see yourself in next 5 years is kind of much more faster response are seen today. Immediately he gives you the response, and he gives you much details as well. For reaching this position, for me it will take this much of years, and it requires these skills, etc. And on to the boss or a supervisor kind of dimension, these guys are much more happier with a coach to reach other than a boss who questions what is happening, why it is happening, etc. So this is where they look forward for a coaching or a mentoring kind of approach, where they can closely work with the supervisor, with whom they can interact on a continuous basis or a regular basis. Bringing the performance bottlenecks onto the stage, and seeking help from him as well as the organization, because for them the primary door or the person is the coach, or the coaching mechanism is the one which they look forward for. By the way, Emil, do we have any questions at this point of time? Okay, fine. On to the recognition part. So as we discussed earlier, they look forward for a much trendy approach in their life, which includes the recognition dimension as well. So gone are the days where these guys can be thought of satisfying them with public appreciations, or even today it is practiced in many organizations. But for these guys, the kind of examples which are seen in the screen now, for example, Amazon coupon, or a Pizza Corner or a Domino's Pizzas coupon, that really enthuses these guys, and they are excited about it because of their lifestyle, as we have discussed earlier. And for them, pat on the back has to be done in this way. And yeah, we all know I'm happy when I'm appreciated, and the modem of appreciation differs. For them, these are the ones which are appealing. And moving on to the work dimension, yes, they look forward for a dynamic or a challenging work, and you feed them with those kind of activities or assignments. They're happy and they are engaged, so that itself becomes a retention strategy for them, where they have got much more challenges, and they also have to rise up for the occasion, and they do meet out those challenges. Let's have a quick poll now. Yeah, it's launched, and the question is, do you treat millennials differently from based on the age group? For example, the other age group, like say 40 plus or 50 plus, from them in your organization, do you have different mechanisms, starting with recruiting to end? Yes. Wow. So we have got 100% audience saying yes to this question. That's really exciting. Yep, on to the learning dimension, which is another interesting PMS aspect. As we have seen earlier, these guys are tech savvy, so we don't find them often buying books, the typical hard copy books, and reading through, noting down things, trying to identify new components, new concepts or terminologies there. They are much excited with visual and audio, modem as such. So many organizations in today's environment, the primary focus or the primary modem of learning is not the classroom training. It becomes a online transaction. And again, it comes up with its own advantages, like anytime you can do that, and it gives you much more options for engagement. So that's about the online learning for them. And we have got a lot of the portals as well. For example, Skillsoft, or many of these portals are available where you can find training programs starting with legal compliance dimension, internal HR policies and procedures, travel policies, etc. And it also includes your technology and our subject matter transactions, where they can have groups and subgroups, as we have seen earlier in Slack and those kind of factors, where you can have these documents, or even the induction program. For example, induction training program can have regular videos by different, introduction to different departments. So those kind of transactions are, much more exciting for these guys if it is, given fed to them through online option. And they look forward for a personalized PMS. So what do we mean by personalized PMS is that they want the aspirations or the interests of these guys, likes and dislikes of these guys, to be considered during the PMS time, during the regular feedback or goal setting time, whatever it is. They look forward to what an extent their personal interests are aligned with organizational goals and expectations. So for them, when you have a continuous feedback or a one-on-one discussion, so that is much more appealing. And we see even in many organizations, the one-on-one discussions or a regular check-in on a monthly or a fortnightly basis of maybe for a quick time like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it yields its own results in terms of employee engagement and happiness. And then, we started discussing about this, the continuous feedback. So these guys are not looking forward for annual pattern or even half-yearly pattern. They look forward for a real-time feed, as we have seen earlier. And then, when we say continuous feedback, you can talk to these gentlemen on a regular basis. It can be a weekly one or a fortnightly one, 10 days once. They want to record their achievements. They want to see what have they done. As and when they do some activity, they finish that, they immediately, if you are giving an opportunity for them to record that in the system, that really enthuses them. Yes, I have done this. So that's a sense of achievement is appealing for them. So that is where we need to connect. The HR professionals or the organizations have to connect with them, providing these platforms where they can express themselves with regard to their happiness or challenges, and they want to be heard. Be it a continuous feedback or the survey kind of mechanisms, basically they want to be heard. They are much excited when they are consulted or when they are taken up for the discussion on various things. And they have the sense of importance, sense of inclusion. They're happy about it. Unlike the previous generation where the decisions or analysis, those things can be done from the management side or by the senior team members. These guys are excited about sense of inclusion. And gamified applications and surveys, it really excites, these things really excite these guys. They're happy about it. They would not prefer typing things in a textual box where they can, they are asked to type, for example, a paragraph. Instead of that, you give them an option for objective type questions, or even in surveys as well, or keep the questions in this dimension in the majority portion, and that will be effective and appealing for them. And in today's world, many of the organizations, they manage the employee aspirations in multiple ways and means. For example, even if you don't have an environment in the real-time environment where you can focus on a particular area or a subject, I mean, interest, which is of your interest, still the organizations enable these, I mean, guys in a multiple ways. And these are the few examples that we have. For example, today I cannot work on I mean, my particular current job, I mean, activities or responsibilities. It is all not, I mean, driving me towards artificial intelligence or machine learning, for example. But given an opportunity, I will be happy to present a paper on artificial intelligence and its relevance into my job or the department or the organization as such. So let us have these, I mean, groups, or whether it is a smaller group, internal or external, let us have these guys plugged in there. Let us enable them with the different platforms, be it a hackathon where you can have one or, I mean, few employees, I mean, few members of the, I mean, grouping together, give them a topic, they will do the necessary, I mean, exploration or, I mean, presenting the paper, participating in the conferences. So all these things basically give them an option or a stage for expressing themselves in their interested areas, that which may not be or may be available in their day-to-day I mean activities, but still they are given a platform for expressing their interested areas. They come out with their skills and they exhibit all those things. Again, they get to have the sense of achievement there. So till this point of time, do we have any questions, Emil? By the way, let's check on that side as well. Okay, fine. Maybe I can talk for another 10 minutes or something like that. How Synergita is driving or enabling a platform where you can have these millennials' interests addressed, starting with on the PMS dimension, starting with goals management to feedback. So as we discussed earlier, these guys are excited about the frequency. For example, if it is a quarterly or a monthly period, they're happy about it. And we have the provisioning for having these periods in a flexible way in Synergita. And yeah, on to the continuous feedback and recognition part. Yes, we can have this platform enabled in the system. And again, you have the ability to refer these transactions during the final review time, be it a monthly or a quarterly time. And again, we have the mobile application as well, where the employees can see their goals or they can record their achievements there on a regular basis. You can have the, I mean, these factors, including the dashboards, as I mean, required by these employees. So that's about the mobile application. And we have much more things like core value rating, engagement surveys, and e-communication. So basically, all these things are enabling the organizations to effectively run the performance management for the millennials. And again, through these, for example, the engagement surveys, you can have your surveys conducted in through this mechanism, where you can have any internal surveys. There you can identify what is really exciting for these guys. So when we hear directly from them, it is much more relevant and original. So based on that, the organizations can align their processes, policies, procedures, or how are they going to amend. So if that is in line with the millennials' expectations, it becomes a great place to work. And you can also use the core value rating to identify whether the organizational values are adhered by these guys, and to what an extent also can be analyzed. So that's about the overall perspective of Synergita. So let's see a few screenshots. Yeah, so this is the feedback cycle where you have the ability to configure as per your requirement. You can have a monthly review period or a quarterly. Of course, we do have traditional approaches as well with half-yearly or annual pattern. So here we have the flexibility to do that on a monthly basis, to include the employees from the group which is relevant and which is required for this particular cycle. And of course, the regular notifications are available in the system, automating the mundane activities of the HR or PMS team to follow up with the different stakeholders. And system is taking care of the on-time completion of oral PMS exercise with those notifications. Onto the continuous feedback wall, we enable the platform for sharing the information onto the feedback dimension, and the feedback can be of different types. It can be an award or an appreciation. It can be a developmental input. So these things, they come up with their visibility controls. If you have, for example, if you look at a public appreciation, the visibility is public for that. The entire organization can see that information. They can see who has won the award. They can greet those employees, and again this becomes a wall of inspiration and wall of coaching. Today I can reach out to my boss requesting for his intervention in a particular, against a particular goal, and he can also provide me with those two inputs, and this information is basically within me and my boss. So visibility controls are available in the system. Again, the entire feedback wall will be, you can refer this wall during your feedback time, which eliminates the recency effect. You don't have to remember anything, and it's all available for the making the process effective. And again, this is about the rewards and recognition thing, where pretty easily you can configure your new rewards as per your requirements in the future days. And this is about the core value rating, where you can have your organizational values configured, values like for example, transparency or integrity. You can configure these things, and it can be enabled for the entire organization, where you can measure the adherence level, and you can also have the dashboards enabled for this particular activity. So let's talk about few customers where we have got the millennials attraction done, and few things we have done exclusively for these millennials. The first primary one is Aditya Birla Capital, where we have developed this core value rating component in our mobile application. And of course, they do have other traditional transactions as well. So this is one of the primary factors for them, where they have come up with their core values rating, enabled for their organization. And yeah, Future Group, one of the significant brands in the region, I can say that, where they have got around 70,000 plus employees are under the system now, and they have got the entire performance management enabled in this platform Synergita. In addition to that, they also do the calibration of their employees. And of course, Capita, the entire PMS is under Synergita, starting with goal setting on a periodicity based transaction. And to the Indigene, this is one of our interesting customers, where we have got a few more things enabled. For example, high potential rating. Apart from the performance management, they also focus on the potential of the employee. That is also taken care here. So that's about the key customers that we have, primarily focusing on millennials. So if you have any such kind of things in mind or requirements, please do reach out to us. We will help you out with the overall transaction or automation of the entire PMS for millennials, or any particular portion like continuous feedback, where you can continuously engage with the employee. And
Yeah, so thank you, Raj, for a wonderful and informative session. So we have received a question from one of the attendees. So the question is, how do you attract millennial customers? So this is the question asked by the attendee. So,
that sounds quite interesting. How do you attract millennial customers? Okay. Yeah, let me give you my own example, actually, the one which I experienced. Pretty recently in one of the conferences, we were walking through different stalls, and we had a gentleman actually who was in his, say, like 30s, right? Hardly he was 29 to 30, in fact. So he was basically the entrepreneur where he has a setup of, say, 100 employees, and he spoke in detail about the kind of recruiting solution he has got, and he was talking about how they perform, plan the product, execute it, do the implementation, and all those things. So during that time, he was sharing this particular information with us, where he has got engaged with another, of course, a partner, and that is one side, on one side, and these guys mostly you see them attracted with these kind of startup products as well, and so basically, what they did was, onto the personal interest side, they focused, right? So apart from the work aspects, they also checked on the particular, IT head actually. So that person, of course, again a millennial. So based on his interests and other exciting areas for him, these guys tapped them, and that's one of the, ways or means of getting the customers. And yeah, we have another interesting question. How well can you fit the millennials into the company culture? This is one of key questions that we have to address. First of all, we have to get the team leads or managers on their, to train these guys on their perspective or approaches that they have to take up to manage or handle the millennials. For them, the values or the proposition are different, that they don't find from these millennials, right? So the way they lived and they were appreciated for things are not the same from for these millennials. They find these millennials, and that is where we quite often come across with the words like laziness, and they are job hoppers. You will have more amount of these negative observations for these millennials. But going forward, let us remember this millennial team is of a sizable portion of any organization, even today as well. So we cannot, at any cost of time, in any point of time, ignore or demean them. So the culture has to be in a flexible way, starting with timing or the dress code or whatever it is, the management style, everything. It has to be in a collaborative way. As discussed, the boss days are slowly fading. It's time for a coach.
So I guess that is all. I hope you had a good and informative session. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to send an email at info@synergita.com. And we will be sending the recorded version of this webinar to all of you. Once again, thank you, Raj, for sharing the experience with us. And thank you all.
Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you.